Irungu est une grotte qu'on a découverte dans le sud du Gabon.
Ezt Dél-Gabonban fedezték fel egy barlangot, amiben most vagyunk ennek a maketjében.
En 1992.
1992-ben.
D'accord. Malheureusement, en 92, lorsqu'ils découvrent la grotte en question, ils n'ont pas les moyens techniques et matériels pour descendre dans la grotte.
És 1822-ben, bocsánat, hülyeséget beszélek. A lényeg az, hogy nem volt akkor semmilyen technológia arra, hogy hogyan menjenek le a barlangba, és hogyan mutassák meg. 1992 ou 1892?
1992.
Akkor 1992-ben fedezték.
C'est bon, on peut avancer.
Bonjour, bonjour.
Bonjour.
Donc, on va interpréter en même temps pour que ça aille plus vite.
Après, elle peut parler en anglais.
Yes.
Ok, thank you.
Donc, on est
C'est la prochaine fois ça aussi, je vais te dire.
Okay. Well, I mean,
Parce qu'ils sont hongrois, donc...
oui, everybody speaks
Et-
English. Hi, nice to
Hi,
meet you.
it's a pleasure.
Nice to meet everyone. So, you were saying? Where were you?
We're waiting for you.
Ah, we're waiting for me. Okay. Irungu has been a cave that we discovered in 1992 by Richard Ossisli. So he's French Polynese. And in 2018, that's when we started doing missions in there because it took a long time to find funds. So in there, we explored and we found 500 different types of artifacts of different elements of iron and copper. And we also found 28 skeletons, so 24 adults and 4 children. So that's why it was very interesting because it happened that this civilization was very intelligent, very sophisticated, and this all happened before the 14th century. So it actually opens a different part of history that we do not know. That's why it's extraordinary, and that's why it's been talked about all over the world. So Irungu is a very special cave that has been discovered very recently. Over here, we've got different caves that we found in Gabon. There are at least 100 caves, but these are about 10% of them that we found around the center of Gabon in L'Astrouville. So you've got one of these caves over here. You'll find stalactite and stalagmite. Just so you know, caves in general, they have this constant climate of 20 degrees. It has never changed and it will never change until we go in there. So they have this constant climate which allows this bacteria in the stalactite to pull the cave down and to pull the cave up. But this takes millions of years to do. Millions and millions of years. So it's very rare to find all these in caves. Just so you know, caves also have been underwater. At the beginning of time, all the caves were underwater. And so it's the bacteria from the water that is pulling the cave down and pulling the cave up. It's kind of like what you find in your fridge, in your coolers and stuff. You see that?
Oh, yeah.
It's the same thing. So here are different types of stalagmite that you might find. Here is, what do you think? Do you think it's a natural phenomenon or a human-made phenomenon?
Should be natural.
Yes.
It's very good. It is natural. For a long time, we thought it was human-made because we saw these little boats with people on them. We thought people drew these, but no. This is actually iron that is pouring down of the cave because it's humid in there, and so the iron is actually leaking. This is a very important element here that we'll soon find out for the Irungu cave. This element was very important for this tribe. Behind you is the only blue river in the world, and the river is named Irungu. It was named after the cave. So why is it blue? It's because of the climate and the different bacteria inside the cave. Because as you know, the ocean and rivers outside, it's blue because it reflects the sky. This, on the other hand, there's no sky to reflect from. So it's actually really, really interesting. It's like a sapphire blue. Here you've got different drapes of stalactite, and over here you've got the Nimbutsi cave. So it's a cave that we're going to discover in 2024. But Richard Rossisli actually did a pre-visit recently, and he told me that they found very interesting paintings that were done a very while back. They are paintings of, how should I say, different positions to, different sex positions, basically. They were very, very, very in tune with making babies. So there's a lot of that in
Men
there.
are interested in.
Very, very depicted, very clear pictures of that. Here you've got a very rare phenomenon that we don't find in a lot of caves. This is very rare. Why? Because the stalactite and the stalagmite touch.
Oh yeah.
And it's very thick and round, and these take millions of years to do, to touch. As we keep going, in one of these caves, in the cave over here, Abanda, which is a cave near the coast of Gabon, we found crocodiles.
Oh yeah.
We found orange.
Orange crocodiles.
Exactly. We found orange crocodiles. Why did we find orange crocodiles, and why are they orange? Because their melatonin has been reduced. Because they live in darkness and they've been stuck inside this cave for more than 8,000 years. And so they didn't need melatonin because there was no exposure, there was no sun, and so they turned orange. You would think they would turn white, but no, they turned orange. So how did they feed themselves after 8,000 years? I mean, we don't know. We do know. They fed off bats. So how do they feed off bats? So because bats fly and crocodiles don't exactly fly. So bats in general, they're blind, right? They see through their ears. So the sonar, when they go inside a cave, kind of hits back to them, right? So when they leave a cave, they kind of hit each other because of all the sounds and stuff. And so some fall to the ground. Also males, when they make love to a female, they lose a lot of their energy and they start flying very, very low. And so that's when the crocodile would come in and snatch them up. As you know, in a lot of caves we find bats. You have to be careful though. If there's a cave where there are no bats, it's not a good sign. It means that there's no oxygen inside that cave. So you have to be very, very careful. You always have to ask, are there bats inside this cave? Will I be able to breathe?
Oh yeah.
Here we have another one of those pictures. Do you know if it's natural or human phenomenon?
This looks like human because I can see a nose and 2 eyes. No?
I want to say yes, but no. It is
Okay.
actually a natural phenomenon.
Really?
It's cause of the rain that did these curves. So we think it's actually kind of a mystical thing. We have here in Gabon, there's a belief called genies.
Yeah.
Genies are the keepers of the different elements. So there's a genie for every element, for the element of fire, the element of water, the element of air, and the element of the earth. So we think that the rain here has sculpted the different faces of the genies, or even the different faces of the leaders in the tribes around that forest, which is also near the Abanda cave. So this is a natural phenomenon. Have you ever seen this anywhere else?
No.
There's another country. Movies. Something similar.
In
The United States.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
artificial.
Yes, that's artificial. That's Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
So here they sculpted the
Yeah,
presidents, but here the spirits of the forest sculpted the different
I
genies.
see.
Yeah.
You
Nice.
see? Here is the photo where we discovered. That's how we discovered the Easter Island.
Yes, exactly.
Where we discovered the crocodiles. There's a photographer that was going by this cave and thought, this is a nice picture, I'll take one. And with the flash, it scared off the crocodiles inside the flash of the cave. And so they thought, oh my God, there are crocodiles in here. We have to go ahead and discover this. And that's how they discovered the orange crocodiles.
Oh yeah.
Because the photographer went by. So, let's continue over here. Here we've got a technique that the archaeologists use.
What is it?
It's a technique that they use when they go inside of a cave, or just like in Jurassic Park. You see? Yeah, and so they have big measures and little measures. It's kind of like a map of the world. It's calculated basically. On the map of the world, you've got numbers on the side and on the bottom. It's to calculate the exact position of something, right? This is the exact same thing, except on the floor. And so when they find an object, they put a little flag right here, and they put the date and the hour of when they found it. And so like this, they know the exact position of that object here in this technique called carlotage in French. This is just to explain to you the karstique, so this is the stalactite and stalagmite region that you find in most caves, and the fact that when they link together, that's a very rare phenomenon. It really dictates the age of the cave. Behind you, we're going to start talking about Irungu. So, the difference between Irungu cave and the other caves that you see here is the depth. Irungu is 25 meters deep. So we needed special equipment to go down this cave. The rest of these caves you could just walk in, they're pretty flat. So we had to use this kind of equipment that Richard Oslissi had a friend in Bordeaux, that's where he's from. And he asked him to come down to Gabon and help him get down a certain cave called Irungu. So this is the only entrance to Irungu and the only exit. This cave, unlike most caves, which in Gabon and many African countries, people don't live in these caves. They used to really back then, but nowadays, or even in the 14th century, they didn't live in them because it was scary, it was mystical, it was mysterious, people didn't trust it. So, this cave, how come we found skeletons? How come we found artifacts and people didn't live in them? This cave was used as a burial ground.
I see.
It's a sacred burial ground. Only the royal family would be buried there. Now, when you bury the royal family, you weren't allowed, nobody was allowed to know in the villages. So this is why it was hard to find Irungu, because even the villages nearby didn't even know about it. Reason being is because people would go ahead, kind of like in Egypt, go ahead and steal things. So they didn't tell anyone, they only told a few people, the sages, who would put them inside Irungu. So here, this is how small the hole is. This is the entrance of Irungu. It's very small, it's very narrow, so if you're claustrophobic, I do not recommend you go in caves. This is
No, that's not for me.
Yeah, it's pretty scary. You can, caves usually are pretty big when you enter them, but sometimes caves like Irungu, it's very scary. So this is Richard Oslissi. This is his colleague that helped him find Irungu. This is the entrance. So when the sages would take the bodies, they would throw them inside here. The bodies would kind of fall on their own and find their way here to the third part of the cave, the 25 meters deep part. So through time, we also thought this was non-accidental. We thought that it was meant this way, but actually it was a natural phenomenon. With time, the dirt with the rain kind of scattered everything everywhere. So here they're gathering bones. You're not allowed to take away the bones inside of a cave here in Africa or in any country in Africa because it's sacred. If you do that, you'll have very bad luck. Mm-hmm. So they had to scrape the bones in order to date them from what century they were from. If we continue.
Like
why did we find so many?
In the cave.
Sorry?
It's like an initiation. When visiting initiation, c'est comme une initiation en fait. Quand on rentre dans la grotte.
Comment ça?
Ben, en fait, avec tous ces tableaux, vous voyez, on parcourt des choses. En fait, c'est comme si on s'initiait. Voilà.
Oui, parfois, it's kind of like that. It's kind of like initiation, exactly. So why do we find so many objects when it's supposed to be a burial ground? Why are there so many objects? It's kind of like the Egyptians, when they buried them, they thought there was an afterlife. And so they needed these tools, but unlike the Egyptians, they didn't bury them with food or slaves. No, just tools. So you've got bracelets, you've got shovels, you've got hoes, you've got axes, all kinds of agricultural tools and also hunting tools. These bracelets, all these tools that you see here are made with the iron that we found in the cave over there that was leading out. So they knew how to extract the iron, how to forge it like a blacksmith. Iron, I mean, they were forgers before there were forgers. So all of this is made of iron except these. These are made of copper. Copper does not come from Gabon. Copper comes from Congo, the Republic of Congo. So back then, Gabon was a part of the République de Congo. And that's how they also, there was a commerce, there was business between different tribes, and that's how we find copper here. So we see that there was a trade going on between different tribes here in Gabon and République de Congo. These are different hunting knives and spears. You've got a sacred spear here that we'll see up there. All these objects that you see in the photos, we'll see them in the light in the other part of the museum. Behind you, you've got a skeleton and a couple of skeletons, a couple of objects. There's something really weird about this head over here. I don't know if you can notice it.
It's a head, actually.
It's a head of an animal, I don't know what it is.
Oh, no, it's a human being.
Dinosaur?
Human being.
It's a human being.
Really?
There's just
I
don't know what kind of animal this is.
A skeleton.
A skeleton? Oh no.
I'm sorry.
So,
What?
there's a gap between the teeth.
Yes.
It's weird, isn't it? And it's done post-mortem, which means it's been done before they died. So they would literally rip their teeth out because it was an aesthetic custom. They thought it was beautiful to have missing teeth. Yeah, this tribe thought it was actually a very beautiful thing, very attractive to have missing teeth. I couldn't tell you why. I couldn't tell you why. But there are different.
This is not for us.
No. You know, it's a custom that is now practiced in South Africa. There are still some tribes that rip their teeth out. Yes. It's weird, but it is what it is. I mean, beauty is subjective, so. But you've got other customs.
Oh my God.
The Fon tribe, which is one of the most prominent tribes here in Gabon, used to shave their teeth into fangs to scare other tribes. That's how they gained so much territory. They made other tribes believe that they were eating people, so that tribes were scared and they would scare them off and gain all this territory. They were soldiers. They used this military tactic to gain so much ground.
They were awful.
Yeah.
But it's very effective. I mean,
It is effective, and some tribes also use. There's a black string for some tribes that they use for children that they put around their stomach, usually girls, to shape their hips so that they can have birthing hips when they grow up. And it's also to scare off all kinds of negative energies as well. So you've got different customs, different ways of doing things.
Sure.
They thought that missing teeth were really pretty. Over here, can anyone venture a guess into what that might be?
Like a weapon?
Yes, like a
Kind of.
agricultural.
No, it's not a weapon. It's for sacred use. I don't know if you can venture a guess.
No
What
idea.
is this?
It's actually it's a bell.
Oh.
So this bell is sacred. It's called a kendo. And only the leaders of the tribe would use this. They would put it on their shoulder. You see, that's why it's shaped this way. And that's why we all think it's agriculture. Yeah. And they would shake it during ceremonies to gather people of the village and also the ancestors of that village. So it's a very sacred bell.
Yes, I can see what it is.
Those kind of things I see over here.
Yeah.
Nowhere else.
And over here, we think it's the leader because he's next to his kendo bell. And his teeth are so very well preserved after 800 years. How does that happen? I mean, our teeth, when we get old, they just kind of fall off on their own, right? Just little by little. Well, because back then they ate very little salt and very little sugar. Sugar really kills the teeth.
Yeah.
So back then they had these big jaws and big teeth also to rip apart the meat, the raw meat, because they didn't really have knives and stuff like we do today. They had to rip it with their teeth. That's why their teeth are so big as well. So there you are. And this picture represents just that we're leaving the darkness, the mystery, the obscure, the mysticism of this cave, this initiation, as you put it so well earlier. And we're going into the light where we'll learn more about the sense of these different objects and see what they were used for back then. So we're going into the light now.
Oh, finally. Thank you, Lord. I'm alive.
Yes, you're alive. He's alive.
Good news.
Oh my God.